All right, and we are live. We'll give it a minute for our audience to start joining. And as they come in, there's some few people already. As you are coming in, feel free to write in the chat where you are reaching out from or where you're joining this webinar from in the chat today. I'll give it about another minute and then we will get started. Super excited for this today. All right. All right. For those of you who are just joining us, again, feel free to write in the comments. We should be streaming live on LinkedIn as well and YouTube. Rich and Tim, thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. Super excited about our recent partnership and to be able to showcase these two technologies together. So, Rich, thank you for taking the time out of your busy day to join us today.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thanks for having me. Excited to do this with you guys.
Amazing. Do me a favor. Tell our audience a little bit about you, Rich, before we get started. I'm going to have Tim do the same, and then we'll get into some housekeeping things before everything starts. So tell our audience a little bit about you.
Sure. I'm the Chief Marketing and Strategy Officer for a company called HireLogic. We're a Crelate partner, and what we focus on is essentially using AI to help automatically extract great, valuable insights from your interviews, your intake calls, other conversations, and save it directly into Crelate. And I'm based in Northern Virginia, just outside of DC.
Amazing. Thank you. Tim, I know about you. So tell our audience about you.
Oh, always happy to be here, Courtney. Thanks so much for having me. I'm Tim Keckler, sales engineer for Crelate. I onboard a lot of our customers to the platform, integrate tools like HireLogic into Crelate, and kind of demonstrate what they're capable of producing.
Amazing. So for those of you who are joining, thank you for taking the time out of your busy day to listen into this wonderful demo. Love everybody that is registered. This is a common question and a requested topic. So super excited to be able to talk about all the goodness that's happening with this partnership. If you have questions throughout today's webinar, please feel free to write them in the chat and we'll make sure that Tim and Rich get these questions. If you have anything specific, questions to anything outside of this, please feel free to email us as well at fulldesk@crelate.com or specifically about Crelate at support@crelate.com. So with that being said, Rich, I'm going to start off asking you some questions.
Of course.
Okay. We need to tell our audience about all of the wonderful goodness that we have here. So with that being said, can you give us a brief overview of HireLogic and really what you do for HireLogic?
Sure. And let me actually share a slide just to give you some kind of background so people can get a sense of this. So a little bit about the company. So we were founded in 2021, and the goal of HireLogic was to get some smart people together, some PhDs in machine learning science, and create the world's best AI that understands the context of staffing and recruiting conversations. So imagine, intake calls and interview calls. I'm sure folks on the phone do lots of those and then go back into Crelate and enter those notes. Imagine HireLogic, an AI, a smart assistant that's listening to those conversations. And after your call, within about 60 seconds, you get fantastic insights about that candidate or about the intake call, a job description, or what have you, automatically pushed into Crelate without you doing any work. And that's really the goal of what HireLogic is. It's a way to leverage AI in a smart way, not just to help you, I'm sure you guys have used maybe tools like ChatGPT and others to help you craft notes and things like that. This is highly specialized machine learning models that are trained to understand the context of a candidate, context of a job description, and generate highly, customized and client-facing ready candidate submittals and job descriptions right into Crelate. And so the core of what we do is what we call interview intelligence. We also support intake calls, as I mentioned, and other types of calls, reference calls, exit interviews, etc. We have a resume analysis component that can help you parse and score resumes. We have a screening chatbot that can, reach out and screen candidates on your behalf. And we also have a chatbot that is trained on every interview or every conversation you've done, so you can come and ask questions about it. And of course, along the way, we're continuously pushing data into Crelate. And very recently, we also launched an ability to import data from Crelate. So that's HireLogic in a nutshell.
Well, you said the buzzword. AI is the buzzword, Rich. Let's face it. I know that we've done a lot of podcasts on AI, and obviously there's a lot of hype around AI, but also some concerns around bias and regulations. So talk to me about your guys' perspective on the bias and the regulations when it comes to AI.
Yeah, great question. And yes, that is top of mind. People are always concerned about, hey, if I'm using AI, am I, running afoul of any regulations or laws? And I actually did a webinar last month with the commissioner of the EEOC, and we talked a little bit about regulations both here at home and abroad. I put together this for the audience because it might be interesting to see. So at the US, at the moment, there's nothing at the federal level. So all of the AI regulations are currently at the state and local level. Europe has something called the EU AI Act. In Canada, there's an Artificial Intelligence Act. Australia, China, other countries have their own. At the international level, there's something called ISO 42001. You may have heard those series of standards. HireLogic is actually one of the only HR companies on the US national body that's working on the development of ISO 42001 standards as they emerge. So we're advocating on behalf of customers in the development of those standards. But it is going to be messy. The big takeaway, and this is something I spoke about with Keith Sonderling, who's the former EEOC commissioner, is look, there are already discrimination laws that exist. Whether or not you use AI, you have to comply with those laws. So his perspective, and I agree with it, is use whatever tools you want that helps make you more productive, but just always be mindful that you have to follow and adhere to the laws that we have in place, right? So from an AI perspective, that means while there's certainly concerns around potential bias in AI and kind of, replicating those biases that are in training data, and reinforcing them. What's interesting to note is there's still plenty of data, large studies that have been done across decades at this point that predate the existence of AI and certainly the use of AI in HR that show how, biased we are as humans, right? So plenty of studies that show how, we tend to, favor certain attributes, even subconsciously when screening resumes, making gut decisions in the initial stage of an interview, using our intuition, things like that. And so the question isn't so much, is AI better or worse, but knowing that this bias exists, how can we leverage AI to augment human decision-making, to perhaps automate some of the most repetitive tasks, and ultimately give humans more time to make more objective, stronger decisions. So that's kind of our perspective, on that front.
I love it. And this is a world that's going to continue to change from where we are today and ever changing. But it sounds like you guys have a good pulse on what's happening. So without further ado, I was so excited when I got to see this. Can you ever so kindly, can we see a demo on HireLogic and how it works with Crelate and how it helps recruiters in general?
Absolutely. So let me just share my screen once more, because I think that the best way to show that is via a demo.
Amazing.
So I will share the HireLogic side of this, and then I'll ask Tim if he wouldn't mind helping me share the Crelate side and show what it looks like there. So look, the idea here is to make this really, really easy. Okay, so we simply show you how you can invite HireLogic to any conversation, and we support any mode of interviewing. So it could be on Zoom, Teams, GoToMeeting. Lots of times your recruiters are on the phone. Maybe they get calls back from candidates, or sometimes you may even be doing in-person interviews. It's really easy to invite HireLogic to any of those ways of doing interviews. And after the conversation, within about 60 to 90 seconds, depending on how long your conversation was, you'll get the notes into Crelate. And here's what that looks like. So the first thing you'll do is you'll when you sign up for HireLogic, which is completely free, you guys can go to hirelogic.com and sign up. is you will connect to Crelate. And we've tried to make this super, super easy. You just put in your API key. And once you do that, you have several different options. You can just have the notes be pushed into Crelate. That's the default behavior and probably what most of our customers are using today. Some also have decided they want to import positions, candidates, and resumes into HireLogic. If you do that, you get some additional benefits like being able to parse and score resumes and things like that. Okay. The other option that we have is we can connect to, if you happen to be using it, a VoIP system. So today we support, for example, RingCentral, RingOver, Vonage, and Zoom Phone, and Teams Phone, I think, is the other one. And very similarly, you just put in your admin credentials and we connect. At that point, there's no process change at all. If you're using VoIP and we're integrated to RingCentral, for example, whenever you're doing a call on RingCentral, HireLogic will join, will listen to the conversation, and afterwards we'll push these notes directly into Crelate. No change to your process, which is nice. If you want to invite HireLogic to Zoom, Teams, or Google Meet through a scheduled interview, you can simply copy this email. It's an email that'll be unique to your HireLogic account, and add it to your invite that you're sending out to the candidate. And HireLogic will join that Zoom, Teams, or Google Meet at that day and time, and you'll see a HireLogic note taker. You can change the name if you want, listening to the conversation. Similarly, if you're not using a VoIP system, or you happen to leave a voicemail with a candidate and you left your phone number to call back, and it's, let's say, your cell phone, we do have a regional number that we provide to you where you can conference in HireLogic in a 3-way conference call, and we'll listen to the conversation that way. So if the candidate calls you back, you're in the grocery store, you don't have time to take notes, you can say, hey, hang on a second, let me just conference in my note taker, conference in HireLogic, we'll listen to the conversation. However you happen to invite HireLogic, at the end of that conversation, you'll get an email with either PDF or text attachment, you can decide, and a link to HireLogic, and you'll have some fantastic notes provided to you. So this is what I'm showing you here, the default notes that are provided for a interview type conversation. So in this case, you'll get a synopsis of the candidate. We're very accurate at determining who the candidate is in a multi-party conversation. You'll get potential strengths or concerns that were discussed in the context of that job, experience that they mentioned, any leadership or teamwork attributes, any interests or expectations that they discussed, anything around location, geography, travel, and any compensation. So that's kind of the default analysis. You'll also get, and this is what a lot of customers find useful, a summary of all the questions that you asked during the interview and a summary of the responses. And if it's a multi-party or panel interview, it'll even say which interviewer asked the question. And finally, on the third tab, you get some interesting data about the interview itself. So operations people might and data junkies might like this. If we imported the position from Crelate, or you dragged and dropped it here, we can actually analyze it and tell you how much of the job description you actually covered in the interview. We'll show you the different topics that were discussed across skills, industries, job functions, and titles across all the participants or just by the candidate. And you can enable transcription and audio if you want, so that you can drill down, let's say on security, and see where in the transcript this was discussed, and replay the audio if you want to hear that component. Right? But you'll notice, if you've ever looked at a transcript, it's kind of messy, right? Humans don't always talk in a linear way. We say ums, ahs, or stops and starts. The point of HireLogic is it summarizes and abstracts all this information to you, so you don't have to go digging in transcripts if you don't have time. One of the other optional features that we have is compliance risks. There's a question on EEOC. We are actually the only solution on the market that can detect potential EEOC non-compliance during the conversation. So if an interviewer inadvertently asked a question related to age, race, gender, or what have you, we can flag it, and you can use that for training and coaching purposes. We also detect any qualitative or quantitative information, like metrics and KPIs that were mentioned, and we'll attempt to detect any follow-ups. So that's kind of the quick summary of an interview. You also have the ability to define what we call custom insights. So you may have, your own candidate submittal format that you use, or your customer may want the summary of a candidate in a specific way. You can actually define custom templates in HireLogic and get it in that format. So here, instead of our default output, you see a candidate synopsis, the current role, reasons they're looking to leave, what their previous role is, education, software they're using, etc. Whatever you can imagine or want your submittal form to be, and the notes you want, the format of the notes you want in Crelate, you can define in HireLogic. And as long as you covered that topic during the conversation, HireLogic will extract the information for you in either paragraph or bullet format and save it into Crelate. Okay.
I love that. Now, Rich, before
Yep.
you go on, we have some questions. You already answered one, and you said yes,
Mhm.
that you do support EEOC and GDPR.
Yep.
You answered the Ring Central because I saw it in your app, but someone asked, does it work with WhatsApp?
To work with WhatsApp, it's not integrated directly. That's something we're looking at. However, you can. We have something called Listen Now. So if you're on the phone with somebody on WhatsApp and you put it on speaker, you can click Listen Now on your laptop, and it uses the device microphone to listen to that conversation. We typically use that for in-person conversations, but if you happen to be on WhatsApp or a platform that is not something that we natively support, like let's say GoToMeeting or WebEx, you can use Listen Now to listen to the conversation happening on those platforms.
Amazing. Thank you for answering that. I didn't want you to get too far along.
No worries. And if you happen to record a conversation, I know iOS is coming out with recording soon. You can get a transcript from that, and you can upload that into HireLogic, and we can also analyze the transcript.
Amazing.
And just before I hand it to Tim, I'll show you one more thing. As I mentioned, we support intake calls, so you can reanalyze a conversation or reassign it, I beg your pardon, as an intake call, and you'll enter one or more job titles that you discussed. And based on that, HireLogic will go into the discussion, and it will actually generate a detailed job description, responsibilities, top skills required for that role, a day in the life of that role, and suggested interview questions based on your conversation with the hiring manager. So this helps you align your, make sure that you're in alignment in terms of what the recruiting function, or activity should look like based on your understanding of the job description. So
I love that.
Once we capture this information on an interview, for example, it gets automatically pushed into Crelate, and I'll stop now and let Tim show you what that looks like.
Excellent. So as I'm about to share my screen, I also want to talk about, I've implemented this with a couple of organizations that use Crelate today. So sharing a little bit about like what they love most about this. Find my tab here.
I just want to know where this was when I was running a recruiting desk.
Right.
Like, life would have been amazing if I would have had those tools like this.
Is that popping up, Courtney? Can you see that okay? Okay, perfect.
All good. That was my fault.
No, all good. So two things about this. First of all, it's made for recruiting and staffing firms, right? So this is AI note-taking technology that's geared towards what organizations that use Crelate do. So being able to distinguish a sales intake call or sales conversation from a candidate screen, for example, is kind of core functionality, right? It's core to the workflow of our users, and it's something that the AI technology understands. The second part, and selfishly for me, when I'm working with a platform software like Crelate, I want to do as much from that platform as I possibly can. So one of the things I love about, and our users love about this integration the most, is that they set it up and then they just use Crelate, right? And it opens up Crelate to a number of new VoIP technologies, right? A lot of our Crelate users today use Ring Central. Everybody who's on the call that is a Crelate customer is familiar, and also a Ring Central customer is familiar with using Crelate for calling and texting. But as Rich showed earlier, Microsoft Teams and Zoom and a number of other platforms now are listened to through HireLogic and imported into Crelate. So use more tools for this type of thing. Analyzes the notes and then imports them into Crelate. And as you guys already know, all of that becomes searchable and reportable, key things that you use the Crelate platform for. So earlier, Rich showed an interview that we conducted with Melanie London. And if I click on her profile, this is simply the end state of that, right? Took about, 45 seconds to a minute after we hung up the phone for it to analyze and import all of those different AI notes and attributes directly into her profile here. So pause on there for just a second. Yeah, this is the end state of that interview conversation. We had automatically import. And again, we used Ring Central for this, but if you're inviting this to Microsoft Teams for virtual conference or any of the other things or any of the other communication platforms that we mentioned earlier.
And it does give you, like, it'll tell you in the notes who the interviewer was. So that recruiter will get credit for that conversation. And again, what Tim is showing you here is our standard kind of output with the synopsis, strengths, concerns, etc. You can customize it to have whatever notes you want in whatever format you want.
And all of that, again, becoming, searchable inside of the app. I'm not showing anything no one's ever seen before, but for me to be able to come in here, throw in a search query and then find, Melanie based off of that, like it's going to go right to that conversation based off of anything we talked about on the phone.
So if you think about like Boolean searches, right, they're useful for certain things, but they don't capture the nuances, right? So if you're interviewing a developer and you talk to them about their offshore experience, you now have that detailed information in notes in Crelate, and you can go to search and search for offshore, which is typically not a Boolean search that you'd be able to do. And you'll get a list of all the conversations with all the developers that that have offshore experience discussed during the interview. So you could say Java offshore, for example, right? So pretty powerful stuff for rediscovery and search.
Excellent.
I love it. All right. Can I ask some questions based on what you guys said?
Please.
Or can you still talking? All right. So now my next question is, do you have any examples of benefits that customers that have used both or Crelate and HireLogic, what they've experienced? What is their experience? You've both done some implementations. Talk to me about what the other side of that coin is.
Yeah, let me actually show you. I actually have a case study. This is not a Crelate customer, but an ATS very similar to Crelate, and we'd expect a similar kind of benefits, right? Because it's not ATS specific, these particular benefits. So this is a 12-week study of a customer that's using HireLogic, and they were able to. They're one of our older customers, so they have KPIs that they've tracked for recruiters during this process. And they took about 150 of their recruiters and they segmented them into high, medium, and low users of HireLogic, right? Where low was maybe they used it once or twice a week, and high is they use it several times a day. And what they found in the high and medium cohorts is that those users who used HireLogic more frequently did about 14% more interviews than before they used HireLogic. They had over 20% more submittals, which is interesting, and we'll keep that in mind because we'll come back to that. That resulted in over 40% more hiring manager interviews, 23% more offers made, and 38% more candidates joining. So these metrics are from before and after using HireLogic for those same recruiters. And we actually had expected when we were at the beginning of this study to see more of the benefits up front in hiring, right? That like they'd be doing a lot more interviews because they're just dialing and going to the next person and all the notes are taken care of. And we asked them, why do you think, you're starting to see more of the downstream benefit? And it all comes back to this submittal. The output from HireLogic helps you create richer, more consistent summaries of those candidates to pass to your clients. And as a result, they felt that the quality of those submittals were driving more interviews. And as a result of driving more interviews, you had a downstream impact on ultimately the placement. This is just one example. We have others. But it really is impressive, Courtney, to see that not only are there some basic productivity benefits, right? So if you look at benefits in terms of two dimensions, right? Tactical to strategic on the vertical axis and immediate to longer term value on the horizontal, you'll get some immediate benefits turning on HireLogic and Crelate, right? You'll reduce the amount of note taking. You'll be faster to do, post interview process and increase submittals. And of course, you'll get more data to make objective comparisons of your candidates and increase the number of interviews. But longer term, because we're giving you visibility into your operations and helping you with compliance and other issues, it creates more accountability, and you're enriching Crelate with a lot more data that you can actually help drive better hiring outcomes over time by being able to search and find candidates that are better fit. So these are kind of a couple of different examples of benefits that we're seeing from some of our customers who've been using it for a longer period of time.
All right. That question hasn't come in, but I'm going to say this is probably a question. There seems to be a lot of AI note takers out there, Rich. Let's face it. They're coming onto the market daily.
Yep.
In our market, what makes HireLogic different? How do you stand out against the competition?
Great question. And a lot of times, many of our prospects have been using those tools, and they're coming to us to find out, hey, this is not exactly what I want, and what do you guys do that's different? And I think, as the market matures, we'll start to see, not just in hiring, but even in legal and medical and other industries, that specialization is important. And here's why, right? In order to build a solution that gives you good data from a recruiting perspective, there's three things you need to do. Number one is you have to train those models specifically on interviews, on intake calls, to be able to have them understand what's going on in that conversation. If you go to a general purpose solution like Copilot or ChatGPT, those organizations are focusing on creating general intelligence where they're training on all sorts of public data available on the internet. Interviews are typically not public data that's available on the internet. So with HireLogic, what we've done is we've been able to train our models on these organic interview minutes, millions of organic interview minutes, to be more accurate, less subjective, and have less hallucinations in the context of extracting information about a candidate, for example. The other important component is you need to have a solution that supports the process that you're going through, right? What's the difference between a screening call and an intake call? What's the difference when, how do you use AI to analyze resumes against a job description? And so we have been singularly focused on staffing and recruiting and talent acquisition. And so our AI pipeline and models are highly optimized for that. And then third is, of course, you have to be, focused on proving ROI and creating value in that particular area. And we work exclusively with staffing, recruiting, exec search firms, and HR talent acquisition organizations, so that we're continuously optimizing our solution for, creating value and proving ROI in that particular domain. So that's really, how we're different from these general note takers. And our customers have seen it. And in fact, we've had Crelate customers switch from general note takers like Otter or Fireflies to HireLogic once they see not only is the output better, but we're more tightly integrated with Crelate. Here's just a quick example. Like, you remember that question and answer section where we're detecting the questions? There's a lot of sophistication and challenge in detecting questions. If you think about it, first of all, we have to filter out all the questions that a candidate might ask, because those are not part of the interview, right? If you're trying to summarize the interview, you want to see the interviewer questions and the responses. So you have to filter out the candidate questions. Second, people ask rhetorical questions often, so you have to filter those out. So there's a lot of nuance in trying to accurately, with high precision, identify the interviewer's intended questions, and then make sure we capture all those intended questions. So if you take a transcript of an interview and run it through ChatGPT with even advanced prompting, we are much more precise and have higher recall in terms of just that one area of question and answer summarization than using general note takers, right? That's one small area. There's other areas, right, around, the amount of fine tuning we've done, compliance detection, domain expertise, but that kind of summarizes, in a nutshell, is higher accuracy, better consistency, more objectivity, less hallucination, and less subjectivity.
Lots of goodness. All right. If anyone else has any additional questions, feel free to put them in the chat. I know I'm hogging all the air here asking questions. I'm sure there's other ones out there. Rich, we talked about this, but let's re-hit it again. How do you guys handle the concerns around candidate privacy and then the AI bias concept?
Yeah, absolutely. So that also comes up, and I'm often with some of the larger customers on the phone with legal counsel, reassuring them. But yeah, we're pretty conservative when it comes to what we do with client data, how we manage it, and how we present it in the output. So from a privacy perspective, we have an option to not persist any audio or video. We don't even, video we completely skip. Audio can be turned on if you want, but otherwise it's only temporarily used to generate a transcript. We also automatically redact any PII that's mentioned, so social security numbers, credit cards, things like that. We have customers all over the world using it, so we will sign a data processor agreement. We'll sign standard contractual clauses for customers who are in Europe under GDPR and CCPA and other things like that. Customers own all this data. We don't sell this data. You can export it or have us delete it at any point in time. You can tell us not to use the data for any training purposes. So there's complete, security around the customer data. From a bias perspective, that's a longer discussion, but it comes down to ensuring that we do not have any recommendations or filters in the loop here. That's always humans that are making the decision. We're simply providing you with objective data to make that decision. We don't do any sort of facial recognition or voice recognition or sentiment analysis or any subjectivity. Our training data is very diverse across lots of candidates, industries, positions, and we are actively involved in developing these responsible AI standards like ISO 42001. So heavily involved, not just to make sure that we're ensuring our customers are, safe and secure and our candidates' data is safe, but that we're also on the forefront of following and influencing the regulations as they emerge.
Thank you for talking through that. You mentioned something at the beginning, and I'm going to go back to that. Obviously, anybody who's interested in HireLogic, obviously it's exciting. It's something new, but if companies want to test it out, did you say that there was a free account?
Yes, absolutely. So feel free to reach out to Tim or myself, or go through the marketplace. I believe there's a Crelate marketplace link. We do offer a free pilot, and because the intent is, don't take our word for it, try it and prove it to yourself. And typically what we look for in that free pilot is making sure there's no technical issues, like we connect to RingCentral, your RingCentral account without any issues. We connect to your Crelate issues, that we're capturing the information, right? There's no technical or other issues that are preventing recruiters from using it. And what you would expect to see, even in like a 2-week free pilot, is lots of less manual note-taking for your recruiters, better engagement with the candidates, faster candidate summaries, and giving managers more visibility. And we've got a pretty streamlined process. I know Tim has had some of his customers go through this. So we identify a few pilot users. It's not a lot of overhead for them. You can set up HireLogic in literally 5 minutes, including connectivity to Crelate. We do a little bit of training for those folks just to show them how to use HireLogic and what to expect. But again, that's like 5 or 10 minutes max. And then Jen from our customer success team will work with your organization along with Crelate to make sure that we're answering any questions, running some office hours, and then we review the results with you. And typically customers love it. And what the discussion is at that point is, what are some customizations or tweaks needed to the output so that it fits their process more specifically. So yeah, absolutely free account, and very well managed, low overhead pilot process to ensure that you guys can use it properly and get the benefits that we're seeing other customers have.
I love it. I am so excited. Tim, do you have anything to add? You've been kind of quiet over there. So I just wanted to check in on you and see if you have anything to add, because that's all the questions I have. And I don't see any other in the chat. So we'll let some other people chime in. Anything to add in the meantime?
Sure, yeah, absolutely. So I mentioned earlier that I set a number of people up on this already, and a philosophy of mine for any of the folks that might be in the audience that I've onboarded, it has to be simple, right? Like complex integrations or complex implementations, right, are oftentimes a deterrent for productivity. So with what HireLogic has offered to our customers is very, very simple to get started with, right? And there hasn't been an organization that's tried this out that hasn't found some value in it yet, right? And it's so simple to try. Some of the things that originally drew me to this, the responsible and ethical AI, right? There are no shortage of tools out there today that are doing this type of thing. Like, how easy for it and how long term is this solution going to be for my clients? Crelate has a lot of AI partners. We have a lot of and an increasing amount of AI softwares in the market, right, that want to partner with databases. We have to make responsible decisions about where that technology might be 5 years from now, right? So when it comes to HireLogics and what Rich and team have been able to develop and the way that they've been able to develop, I'm very comfortable recommending it to the prospects that I'm talking to, and the ease of setup just helps that, right? So if there's anybody out there that's currently using the platform, go on the marketplace and just try it out. Right. Again, it's very simple. Takes about 5 minutes, and if you need any of our help, just let us know. But that's all. Yeah, I won't come sit on these things and ask questions unless it's simple and it's intuitive and it's something that our users are going to benefit from. And having set this up a number of times now, I can tell you that it's all of those things.
Amazing. It gives all of those people running their desk time to do their job and touch base with the human element and do all the things that matter, which equals revenue in their pockets. So, Rich, do you have any other closing thoughts? Anything you want to add? This was amazing. I love this product from the minute that you initially scheduled a demo. So I'm super excited for this integration of this partnership.
Likewise, it's been a pleasure working with Crelate and the Crelate customers. And for those of you watching it live, we'll be at Staffing World along with Crelate. So come and see us both there. And if you're watching a recording of this later, again, don't hesitate to reach out to either one of us or connect through the marketplace. And we look forward to proving it out. Don't take our word for it. Don't take Tim's word for it. Try it out for yourself and see what you think.
What booth are you going to be at Staffing World, Rich? Do you know?
It's 1401.
You're 1401.
1401.
We'll put that in the show notes too. And also an email to reach out to anybody that's interested in talking to the HireLogic team and website. So we'll put all of that in everything that we're kind of put out there. Come see us as well at Crelate at 1107. Rich, you have any goodies you're giving away at Staffing World?
We do. We'll be doing a drawing for something, but I don't want to say what yet. So come and see.
Okay, fair enough. I'm going to come and see too. We're giving a MacBook Air away. So come and send people our way too. So I can't wait. Excited to see everyone in Nashville. Excited so much for this partnership. I don't see any additional questions in the chat right now. But thank you both for this amazing session and kind of showing off the goodies here to kind of give an inside look to see what this does for recruiters and their productivity, because I truly think it's game changing.
Yeah. Thanks for having us, Courtney. And thanks, Tim.
Absolutely.
All right, guys. Have a great day.
You too.
Take care. Bye.